of course, not all experience is going to be nice experience because, like I said earlier, sometimes your greatest gifts appear to be your worst nightmare until you realize why they were there and what they've given you.
Exactly. David, we're going to go to a short break. When we get back, I'd like to talk about some of these truths that you did get and come back with, we'll just say come back with, during what I see very clearly as your Kundalini experience. Okay, I might have dropped a bomb on you before that break with the word Kundalini. A lot of New Agers and supposed teachers talk about Kundalini, try to say they even know what it is, or, ooh, they experienced it. It's quite obvious, David, you experienced it when you had your period of time where you were really literally knocked for a loop. You were in your own tales from the time loop. You were knocked for one.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'd never heard of the Kundalini when it happened, but just very quickly how that came about is that I, through 1989 and through 1990, started having this feeling for months, best part of a year. I was a television presenter at the time, that when I was in a room alone, I wasn't alone. I felt a presence around me, and this is all new to me at the time. And this presence got more and more potent, more and more blatant and tangible, until eventually, long story short, I tell it in the book, I've told it before, I ended up with a psychic who suddenly started telling me, a first psychic I've ever met, and she started telling me I was going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets, and I would come under tremendous resistance, and there would be a lot of attacks on me and all the rest of it, but they, quote, would always be there to protect me. And then, as a result of that and things that happened after that, I ended up flying to Peru, and I ended up a series of amazing kind of coincidences and synchronicities. I ended up on a mound in Peru, not far from a place called Lake Titicaca, apparently the highest navigable lake in the world, and one of the area where the Inca claim that the people that created the world came from, basically. Anyway, I ended up on this mound, and in the middle of a stone circle, which I found, quote, by accident. And when I went into the middle of this mound, this is 1991, very early February, I felt like a magnetic pull on the bottom of my feet. I'd experienced it before, but nothing like this. My feet were pulled into the ground, and then it felt like a drill was going in the top of my head. I realized later, of course, it was energy going through me, and there was another flow of energy coming the other way through my feet and out the top of my head. Then my arms went out at 45 degrees, which, without me thinking to do it or deciding to do it, they just went there, and this energy then started coming through me, and to the point where my body was shaking and shaking and shaking, like I was plugged into some electrical circuit. And my arms stayed out in the air at 45 degrees across the side of my head for the best part of an hour, and I never felt anything. But of course, when it was over, my shoulders were agony. And then I through this period of 45 minutes to an hour, I don't know, that this energy was coming through me. I kept going in and out of consciousness, like when you drive a car and you forget where the last 2 miles has gone. Your subconscious has been driving. Right. And one of the times that I came back, because what I heard when I first went to the mound and stood in the middle and this energy started, I heard this voice, or very strong thought form pass through my mind, which said, first of all, they'll be talking about this 100 years from now, and I'm thinking, talking about what? This is all new to me. And the second line was, it will be over when you feel the rain. And that would seem crazy, because I'm standing under a cloudless Peruvian sky and a piercing sun, and no sign of rain anywhere. Anyway, as this process went on through this 45 minutes to an hour, and this energy is coming through me, and I came back from one of these, kind of non-conscious states, if you like, I noticed that over the distant mountains, there was a light gray mist. And as I watched it very, very quickly, this all happened very quickly, like a video that's been put on a slightly faster than normal. Mm-hmm. It became dark gray mist, and I realized it's pouring with rain over the distant mountains. And then over this next period, this rain came from the mountains towards me, and it was literally stair rod rain. It was just immense downpour, and as it was coming towards me, the sun was covered up as the clouds moved across, but the front was dead straight. I mean, weathermen talk about a front coming in. This was like someone had drawn it with a ruler and pen.
Right.
I've described it as like pulling curtains across the sky, and it got to the point where I'm literally standing there and I'm watching this wall of rain come towards me, and then it hit me, and when it hit me, this energy stopped, and now I can feel my shoulders, my goodness can I, and my legs are like jelly, and from that moment, nothing was the same again, and I came back to Britain and went straight onto that Wogan show, and bingo, the rest is history we talked about. Now, I'm thinking, what the hell happened? And you're absolutely right, because what had been triggered in that experience in Peru, whatever it was the Kundalini energy had been triggered at the base of the spine, and it shot up through my spine, smacking off all these energy centers and awareness centers, went out the top of my head, connecting me to some other level of awareness. And that is what was happening to me when I came back to Britain, and I don't know what the heck's going on. And we talked about earlier where, I'm thinking all these concepts, all these awarenesses and insights are flooding into me. It was that Kundalini connection, awakening, that had triggered that. It's completely understandable now, but at the time, of course, when you're going through it, you don't know about these things, as I didn't. You don't know what's going on.
Right.
And it's interesting, I quote in the book a man called Isaac Bentoff, a book he wrote called Stalking the Wild Pendulum, and he says this: the Kundalini, as described in yoga literature, is said to be an energy coiled up like a serpent at the base of the spine. When this energy is awakened, it enters the spine, rises up along it, and is seen or perceived as a luminous serpent by the person having the experience. Well, you can do. I didn't experience like that. But once it has risen into the head, the luminous rod hopefully pierces the top of the head. That is, the rod-like energy beam is seen as projecting through the skull, pointing upwards. When this happens, the person is said to be illuminated. Eventually, such a person may become highly intuitive, develop some psychic powers such as clairvoyance, clairaudience, or healing abilities, and all the rest of it. And lots and lots of people now are going through this Kundalini experience because of this energy change that's going on.
Right.
Not as like extreme as I went through it for whatever reason, but it's happening to more and more people, and it's really important to get this information out so people understand what's happening to them. Because if I'd have known what I know now, then that experience I went through would have been far less traumatic than it was, because I'd have understood what the hell was going on.
Right. It's scary when you don't know.
Absolutely.
It's kind of interesting because, I don't know, I guess I better warn you, David. You can have that Kundalini energy hit you a couple of times in the same lifetime. So you might find yourself having a little bit of a trip when you're out visiting Credo. When I was 4, I was knocked unconscious in a truck accident. And like you, I guess that smack to the head really turned on my clairvoyance, my clairaudience, all of that. And reading this chapter, I don't want to say laughing, but I could certainly identify, because you said, there I was, looking through the same eyes, hearing through the same ears, but what I saw and heard was dramatically different. You said, I began to see beyond the movie.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Most people can't even see the movie, let alone beyond the movie on this planet. And I think when you come out and say that, the world we thought to be real was a manufactured illusion, and at that point you didn't know anything else. You did know it wasn't real.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you had to start digging, and like myself, you didn't have a teacher that could just hand you the answers.
Life was the teacher.
Exactly.
The synchronicity of life and experience was the teacher in itself, which I think is the best.
Absolutely, and the synchronicity that you actually found a good psychic to be able to explain it to you was like a gift.
In the book also, I quote Bentoff on a couple of other things in this, which is very interesting, I think. He says about the Kundalini experience, it is ironic that persons in whom the evolutionary processes of nature have begun to operate more rapidly and who can be considered as advanced mutants of the human race are institutionalized as subnormal by their normal peers. I dare to guess, on the basis of discussions with my psychiatrist friends, that this process is not as exotic and rare as one would like us to believe, and possibly 25 to 30% of all institutionalized schizophrenics belong to this category, a tremendous waste of human potential. And he just goes on briefly. The reason for what happens in the Kundalini activation, why people are seen as strange, is the reason for this is that they have been catapulted suddenly into a situation in which they are functioning in more than one reality. They can see and hear things occurring in our neighboring realities, that is the astral and other higher realities, because their frequency response has been broadened. The onslaught of information may be overwhelming, and they begin to mix and confuse two or three realities. Well, he has just described how I felt after the Peru experience and what was going on in me during that infamous live television interview and in that 3 months I've talked about. It was absolutely a Kundalini awakening. But of course, you say to the mainstream media, I've had a Kundalini experience.
Right.
They'll go, what? A Kunda what? What are you talking about? The guy's crazy, because they don't deal in these things. You know, it's like, you know, who's having who in Hollywood. That's the kind of level we're dealing with.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I know lots of people, well, here in, you know, the Valley of the Sun, where everybody considers themselves a psychic of some level, lots of people actually think that they can take classes to turn on their Kundalini energy. But the people that actually really go through the process, for some of them, you know, I've talked to them, it was like hit by a thunderbolt that gave them all the symptoms of a heart attack and physically threw them across the room. I mean, it was something that took days to be able to process.
Right.
That kind of energy coming through, you know, and I like the fact that you said I was receiving all these downloads. You know, I feel like that almost all the time, like the top of my head. It's like, how many more discs can they possibly stick in this same head before I run out of room? But I can actually feel it now, where before I couldn't. What is interesting, I don't know if you remember, but when you and I were having dinner in Phoenix, I'm pretty sure I gave you a copy of my book on the Universal Medicine Wheel.
Right, you did.
And when I was reading this and realizing that this happened to you basically while you were standing in a circle of stones, I didn't think that it was anything less than synchronicity.
Right.
So you might want to revisit that, because I think it's a great space for you to continue to protect and energize yourself.
Yeah, you know, the synchronicity of life is pointing big time to me. It's funny you should mention it, Meria, a few minutes ago, that another experience of that kind is coming to me very fast, maybe in South Africa in the next couple of weeks when I'm with Credo Mutwa and going into some deep stuff. But it's kind of pointing me that way, and but this time it will be easier because I'll understand what's going on, as opposed to the last time when it's like, could someone just tell me what planet I'm on, please? Just confirm it. Which one is it?
Right.
It's just crazy when you don't know what's happening.
Well, I think it's going to be very exciting, so I think that you'll come back with a freedom that absolutely nothing will bother you again. I mean, I don't want to be corny, but it's almost like Jesus' 40 days and nights in the wilderness, being tempted by Satan.